Hello and welcome to the Faith Perspective live with Andre Archak and me, Keith Bronner, here on Catholic SG Radio. Now, the Faith Perspective gives us an opportunity to discuss issues or events in the church and in the world.
Now, every year on the fourth Sunday of Easter, we celebrate Good Shepherd Sunday, or also known as Vocation Sunday. Now, it's a day for us to focus on, Jesus' role as shepherd and our role of us following his voice. Now, it's a day also for us to, think about and appreciate the many ways that God calls us to serve in the church and in society. And we can also hear stories, from the different states of life. That is, the priestly life, the religious life, the married life, of course, and the single consecrated life.
Now, in our conversation today, we'll be zooming in on the diocesan priesthood. Okay, we'll be demystifying what the formation process is like, and we also get the inside scoop as to what it really is like living in community.
Yep.
Okay? So to help us out, we have a final year seminarian at the St. Francis Xavier Major Seminary, Brother Andrew Lin, who joins us via Zoom. A very good morning, brother.
Hi, Brother Andrew.
Good morning, Andre. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning.
Everyone listening. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, and you're looking good also. All dressed up.
The force is with him, or the force is with him?
Okay.
More than a force, of course, yes.
Yes, the Holy Spirit too, I'm sure.
Yes.
Okay, let's start with almost like the obvious. Could you outline for us the stages of formation in our local diocesan seminary? Okay, because a lot of people hear different terms that is used, things like postulancy, novitiate, theology, all these and then so for people it may be confusing which comes first and the kind of stuff. So what is the process like to becoming a priest in the diocesan in this context?
So in our diocesan seminary, I think it's quite similar to many other places. Maybe the terminology, like you say, is a bit different, right? But it's for us, we have an 8-year journey of formation, and it's split into kind of like 4 parts in a way. So the first year, we call it a initiation year. It's kind of a little transitional period from the outside world, in a sense, into the seminary. We don't have too much of studies or exams. I mean, there are courses, but it's largely to help us to enter into our spiritual life, enter into this time of being detached from the world, in that sense, that we are called to be in the world but not of the world. Yeah, and so we have a 1 year of being with our spiritual director more intensely. And then that's followed by 2 more years of philosophical studies, and not just the academic, right? But in our formation, it's also known as the discipleship years. Right? So it's where we deepen that relationship with Jesus that we began in our first year of initiation, and we learn how to follow Jesus as our good shepherd, really, in these 2 years more closely. Right? So having to balance the difficulties of the academic life, as well as to continue in the deepening of that spiritual life is really what it's all about. Then we go into our 4th year. That's 1 year of regency, which is kind of like an internship year, where we are out of the seminary to understudy the priests in the parish, where we are given opportunities to be attached to different archdiocesan officers or different experiences. Myself, I went to the Asunta Hospital in KL for a good 10 weeks to be attached there for a pastoral attachment experience. Yeah, and I was attached to some schools as well. Right, so it's a year of experiential learning to just be involved in a different kind of way, to be formed not just intellectually but also in our pastoral aspects. And then finally, the 5th to 8th years are our theology years, 4 years of theology, where we are called to be configured, right? Not just disciples, not just following Christ, but learn to be configured or to imitate or to be united more closely and more fully with Him. Yeah, so that's kind of the journey in a nutshell.
That is a very comprehensive layout of all that the curriculum, I mean, in that sense, is truly comprehensive.
Yeah.
But, in all of that, Brother Andrew, that is just academics, right?
Yes.
And then there is the real life, the life of living, right? And being part of all of that. Share with us your experience of what your formative years have been. Many a time for the when you speak to a priest, they'll talk about their formative years, and it's it's been for them, or for many it was ups and downs. There were good times, there were bad times, but at the end of it, a lot of them still take away very good memories. But what has your experience been all these years?
Yeah, I suppose there are definitely ups and downs in every area, right? We don't expect to have purely good memories. And even Jesus tells us when to follow him is to take up your cross, right? So the seminary is no different. I think I would put it in the sense of, like, even in this idea of formation, that it's a misconception that it's just purely academic. We have a acronym for our formation in a way. It's called SHIP, S-H-I-P. So there's the 4 dimensions of formation: our spiritual dimension, the human dimension, the intellectual dimension, and the pastoral dimension. Yeah, so all these 4 are really trying to be balanced all the way in our 8 years of formation. Yeah, and I think community life, especially in the seminary, when we talk about experiences, it's really that deepening of this human formation that is likely to be most important, most fundamental, most integral to who we are, because who we are in the seminary will be who we are as priests, right? And that is so powerfully important for us to realize that it's not a magic button that we press and suddenly when we get ordained or the bishop lays hands on us and then we change into somebody else. But really the formation and the deepening of the realization of ourselves starts really in the seminary, and it's through the interactions with the brothers that really help us to see our dark sides in a way on this May the 4th. The light side of us and dark side of us that we need to really acknowledge and accept and try to work through with humility, with generosity.
In a sense, this is not the first time, that you're living in community, in a sense, because when you went to national service, right, you also lived with a bunch of guys, right? And so now seems to be the same thing, but how different is it from the army days compared to being in the seminary?
I wouldn't consider it community in the sense, maybe my experience was different, but I remember because we also have to kind of like book in and book out here in seminary, right? But coming back on Sunday evenings is such a different experience coming back to seminary as compared to booking into earlier army camp. Right? There's a real sense of being, in a way, like it's home away from home, and there's a desire to be here, as much as it's difficult, as much as it's not always free flowing, not always easygoing, but something deeper is motivating. Something deeper is of course, Jesus is waiting for us here as well. And so I feel that it's really very different, and of course, the amount of time we spend together. Intentionally, right? For all our meals together, we have to be there for a good half an hour to 45 minutes, sometimes at least. For the meals, we are praying together all the time, and there's a lot of contact time that I don't really have that intentionalness in other places.
Okay, I'm going to be very blunt. Slightly naughty of me over here. You get sick of the brothers.
Of course. Yes, and 8 years of it. So you see a good 7 years of your juniors, 7 years of your seniors. You can see the insides and outsides, and then we learn to live.
But it's really it's really actually growing as a family in a sense.
As different as each of you are, with your different personalities, upbringings, and trying to, live together in community. I was about to say coexist, but that one probably is more army lah. That one,
yeah. So we realized that actually all our backgrounds make us who we are today, and there's no one way to do things, right? Jesus is so diverse in his gifts, so diverse in his opportunities for us to meet him, and therefore it's really not about us. There are many things that the brothers do that I probably wouldn't do myself, in the way that things are done, or that I get irritated by, frustrated by, right? But to realize that I'm not any better just because I do things differently, right? And there's a sense of expanding my eyes to realize that it's not about me, and I think that's the most important.
Oh, that's very nice.
As the saying goes, many ways to skin a cat. Many ways to skin a Catholic also, maybe. But anyway, we understand in the seminary they have a nickname for you. It's called Captain Planet. Can you tell us more about this?
I shudder at that sometimes because I don't think I'm worthy of it, right? I see the movements in the world, especially about the need to work on climate change, the need to work on conserving, right? We have, thankfully, finally, we have the church document in Laudato Si that allows us to actually take action, right? But so often it becomes a thing that we know at the back of our minds, but something not so easy to put into practice, right? And I say I shudder because I know I'm not the most active Captain Planet there is, right, compared to all our lay people out there, right? But I do see the need for more conservation, more idea of our stewardship, how we really more intentionally take note of the gifts that God has given us, and therefore just to try to inculcate that in a little way in the seminary.
So it's simple things like turning off the lights, the aircon, not wasting food, I suppose. These things.
And I suppose for me, it's little things add up to bigger things, right? I know we won't make a dent with our individual efforts, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't. We shouldn't do them, right? But as well as having that mindset, having that influence in the future as well in the parishes. My hope is the idea of stewardship can be influenced to others as well, to really take note that these things are not just for us again, right? It's for the whole world to share, and that is our role to really be stewards and sharers of these gifts that God has given.
All right. So will we find you the caped priest?
So sometimes these labels shouldn't be leaked too much.
We also understand that the student meetings can be frustrating. Tell us more.
What have you heard? Some of these things ought to be embargoed, yes.
No, I only know about this because you guys did a video last year around about this time. I think it was you, Brother Bernard, and Eugene.
Yes,
there was a source of research for me. It's all public. It's all public.
Give too many things away sometimes. I think it's a good time for us because it's a time for us to really trash things out if they need to be. Right, we are all trying to work towards this idea of a safe space, that nothing is too unspeakable, right? That if we really feel affected by something, we should be able to bring it up, at least to hear the different points of view, to be heard, to be listened to. And now that we are bigger, right? There are 21 of us, 19 of us in the seminary, 2 of us outside, right? Sometimes the views can be quite disparate, and there's no middle ground sometimes even, right? But it's just to hear each other out, to have that dialogue, to realize that, again, their other opinions are as valid as ours, and then to see how we can find a way to live together, to work at each other's needs and desires.
I'm sure a lot of this discussion is done in charity, right?
Try.
We try. I think the good thing is we allow each other to be ourselves as much as possible, right? So the frustrations that come up, I for myself, I think some of the brothers have told me that I have a look on my face whenever I disagree. So I'm very readable, even if I don't say anything.
I think many of us do show our, from our own expression, of even if we don't say anything, right? Our faces speak a lot. But living in community, right, for that matter, and a community of men, how do you go about, where there's too much rivalry or there's too much competition? How do you handle that?
Sounds like a bit of like envy, right? When we see how other brothers are so much more effective maybe than us in the things that we would wish we could be better at. I think there's a very natural human sense of jealousy or envy that rises in our hearts. Be it in terms of studies, be it in terms of preaching or knowledge or integration.
It's a reality, right? It's a reality.
Yeah, so many ways to see, and then because we live together 24/7 in a way, it's really in your face. Yeah, and then having to realize that, I suppose, to not to brush it away as something unchristian, but to really sit with it and live with it and wonder with Jesus, of course, and with our spiritual directors, what is it that is really underlying all these things. Right? And I think for me, it was very helpful to try to realize that to be happy and to be grateful for these gifts that the brothers have, to realize that these are brilliances of theirs, right? And not to grab and desire to have all the gifts for myself, right? That there is something that can be shared as well, right? That they are, as much as they have their brilliances, they also have their blind spots, and as much as I have my own blind spots as well, so we complement each other sometimes, and we need each other to work together in the vineyard of the Lord. Yeah.
Indeed, we're all gifted in different ways.
Absolutely.
And, we can also learn from one another and grow in that sense, so that we become, the best version of ourselves, really, and fulfill the potential that God has called us to. I talk like my formator lah, but anyway. Okay, Brother Andrew, so we know you are surrounded by the brothers, just about all the time, right? You shared about that earlier. But even though that may be the case, do you ever feel lonely? Like, does it feel like, maybe people don't get me fully, or in a group you can still feel maybe a little lonely. How do you manage such feelings?
I would love to say, of course not, but yeah. Yes, it's very much, it can be very much a lonely journey, I think. And it's not just because we are single or in our own rooms and things like that. I think maybe it's the same as in marriage, there is a universal human experience of that loneliness, right? And that's a good thing in a way, because it makes us realize that actually we are not self-sufficient, right? That we desire and there is a need for another, and then we try to find that another in people, in things, in hobbies, but it never really truly fulfills us, right? And even in our spouse, perhaps, that some of us may think that our spouse is the one that is going to fill our needs, to complete us. But after a while, we realize that is not that true, right? And same for us in seminary. Just because we are surrounded by each other, it doesn't mean that we don't have that inner needs, right? There's some part of us that only we know. Maybe we don't even know. Only God knows, right? And that's inaccessible in a way to others, and that is the source of that need, perhaps that desire for God, and to realize that we really need to seek for Him, as He's the only one that can fill that need.
It's true.
I don't know. Was that answering your question?
Yes.
So in the sense that when you find yourself in a very difficult rut, what has been the most difficult thing, or who do you go to, other than your formators? Do you seek, a little bit of understanding from your brothers, or do you have a spiritual director outside of the seminary? How do you?
Yeah, it's been a recognizing of the way that Jesus speaks in my life, right? I think often my escape plan is to social media, is to games, right? Is to numb myself because I don't want to feel that loneliness. And then
Yes.
when I feel exhausted by my own bad habits, then I just go and sleep, right? And then I won't have to so-called access those areas of pain. But it's obviously not sustainable, and it doesn't help in the long run, right? It could seem to help for a day or two, but in the end, you know that you are still running away. You're still going in the wrong direction. Yeah, and so we have our monthly spiritual direction sessions with our spiritual director. We can choose our spiritual director, and that's really helpful because it gives us a chance to have a sounding board in a way of what's going on in our life. And even though we know sometimes, right, sometimes hearing it from someone else makes it much clearer, right? And I find that it's a very important, and I wouldn't exchange it for anything else, because it's really such a beautiful time to be able to be real with someone, to journey with someone who knows, who's been journeying with you, and who knows all your issues lah, and then
all your quirks and what have you, right?
to guide you in a way that,
I mean, we all do. We all have our quirks and idiosyncrasies, and even our wives or soon-to-be wife will tell you. So,
being human, and
Exactly.
growing as an individual.
and that's the thing, you see. Some people think, when you go into the seminary, you already have to be a saint, and that you are ready for canonization and all of that. How do you manage people's expectations, actually?
We have to take them as they come, really. I think it's by our manner of being a witness, by being that, having that humility as well, to know that we don't have all the answers, that we need to get back to them with. And really, there's so many things in life that I haven't experienced before that our people are going through as well. And to really try to enter into their shoes, to walk in their steps as much as possible in the little way that I can, based on all the people that I journey with, right? So that it's not my own personal journey, but because of the walking with people, there's a little glimpse into a little of what they experience and what they go through. So just to really have that sense that we are as limited as each of you, each of us, and to not have that idea that we are there to solve. Like Jesus is the solver, Jesus is the savior, right? We are really just his instruments. We are really just his hands and feet to listen and to journey and to walk.
And you talk about wanting to, in a way, as a shepherd, no? That's to really relate to the sheep, to walk together with the sheep and the people. But at the same time, we also, want to consider how, as faithful, we can support seminarians and all of you better, So
That's right.
Are there certain things you wished people knew and did more or less of?
As a seminarian, I think we are quite supported, right? Like you said, we have less expectations on us, right? Once you get ordained, somehow putting on that cassock or that chasuble makes it some very different, and then the expectations come and the demands come. But really, I think even from before seminary, in our discernment processes, there's this African proverb, right? It takes a village to raise a child. And I think it takes a diocese to raise a seminarian as well. So it's not just your prayers, but also your witness, right? So to be that witness, to be that village, to show how much Christ is part of your life, so that we will be able to be formed, to grow in that kind of culture, in the kind of deep witnessing to God's love. And that idea of being able to be from the people, for the people, right? Because there is that love that has been given to us, and that we want to give back to the community.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
very well said.
I like that line, from the community, for the community, And even though we do recognize that priests are in some way, because they're obviously consecrated and set apart, but still very much there is that sense of we are all together. And there's a mutual witnessing that happens that edifies, one another. The lay people need the priest, but the priests also need the lay people.
And we talked about a core responsibility also this morning, for the laity together with the clergy. And to add on to that, I just want to ask you, Brother Andrew, with the ongoing synod, right? What's this sense amongst you and your brothers as you are still in formation, but looking at all of what's happening from the Holy Father, asking us to listen, to grow together, to journey together. What do you all see, the future of the church, the local church, and maybe the universal church as well?
And I think actually this synod is very timely in the sense that our church now is growing in this idea of the empowerment of the laity, right? I think previously there was a lot more over-reliance on the clergy, perhaps even to put clergy on a pedestal and things like that. But really to realize that actually we journey together by walking hand in hand, side by side, and it is only Christ that is the one leading us, both hierarchy and laity, right? And this idea of journeying together, I think excites us because it is not one person's responsibility, like you say, right? It's both together, and being able to listen to each other, to not think that again that we have all the answers, but to have the humility to reach out to those who are really not heard. And that's the real challenge, right? Sometimes even in this synodal process, we take it as a project, a series of questions to be answered, and then after this exercise, and then we all go back to our normal lives, right? But what is the real fruits? What is the real extent of the whole point of the synod, right? Is a synodal church that we are looking forward to, right? To be a whole church that desires, that wants to journey together, that wants to walk hand in hand with each other and not just on our own, right? That is not our me and God kind of journey, but really me as a church together with everyone walking together. If we don't help each other, we won't get there with each other, right? All of us are dependent on all of us in that sense. And so really to reiterate and to emphasize the need to continue this synodal process, continue this synodal journey towards being a synodal church, and really not to just treat it as a one-off project that we submitted something
indeed,
and we get a report and then
That's very true. Very true. Okay, one final question before we let you go, and for this we're going to go back to a little bit more of a personal level. So according to the seminary website now, where it has all the vocation stories of all the seminarians, when you first entered the seminary, you had an idea of the Father's call for you as his beloved. How would you say that call has deepened through your formation over the years?
So the Father really has deepened that call, right? That I'm his beloved son. Because even then, when I had that conversion experience, it wasn't about the priesthood per se. It was about me being his son and being loved and being belonged to him, right? And I really see that need in the people that I meet, right? The need to really know and to experience that belovedness, right? And I think for me, over the past 8 years of formation, the deepening has really been in the idea of, especially in this weekend of the Vocation Sunday, about listening to the voice of the shepherd, right? Can I truly believe that he knows me more than I know myself? And when I truly believe that because I am his beloved, then I will be able to have the courage to take the step out into the unknown, to walk with him where he leads me, even though it goes against anything that I've ever wanted to do. It's so much resistance that I feel. And yet there's the gentle nudging, the gentle holding of my hand, to know that if he holds my hand, then what have I to fear, even if it's something to the unknown.
I just, sorry, not so easy. I'm just gonna, when you said when you were in your regency, you were at Assunta Hospital.
Yes.
What made you choose to go to a hospital?
It was I didn't exactly choose it, but it was a part of our possible options for exposure, right? But what really I understood really from it was to really that people are willing to share their stories, right, with a stranger. Yeah, and there's so much depth to where they have come to, and the whole interconnection sometimes with sickness and sin, and the healing that is needed is really that spiritual healing, that psychological healing that comes forth in the sicknesses that come, right? But to be able to just sit with them, and I've grown and learned so much from them as well, in the way that they helped me to learn to love. Yeah, I remember I was with this elderly Indian lady, right, and I couldn't speak her language, and then I was struggling as to what is my role, what am I called to do. But it was just that prompting to just hold her hand, to just sit with her in that silence, right, to smile and to be there, right, and I realized that was enough, right. We have so much gifts that God gives us within ourselves. Yeah, there is an abundance of gifts that God wants to give through us, if only we allow Him, if only we put Him in the center. So that it's not us, that we can decrease and He can increase, as John the Baptist says. Yeah.
So beautifully put.
Indeed. Okay, we're going to be extremely naughty here, lah. One final one, okay? Because we've been talking about the formation and your formation as well. How would you summarize your experience in the seminary? What would you say you have received from the seminary that is preparing you for your vocation ahead?
Your next chapter.
Self-discovery, really, that sense of human formation, right? Because I always say, when we give ourselves the excuse that it's only human, right? I'm only human. And then we say, because I'm only human, therefore I did all these things. But perhaps we can think of it as, I'm not human enough. Because Jesus, who came to be God made man, right, one of us, is showing us the way to be truly human. Yeah, and that if we were more human, in fact, then we would know how to imitate Him in living, in our behaviors, in our actions, in our choices. And I think that really sums up what this whole ages of formation for me has been, right? Especially with the brothers, especially with the pastoral experiences. Yeah, how to become more human.
Beautiful.
Well said.
And because of the little Jesuit background that I have, I remember that line being used quite a lot in the novitiate, that when we become more human, we become a little bit more divine at the same time.
Absolutely.
One of these mysteries.
It is.
Yes. So be assured of our prayers for you.
Indeed.
It's been a joy speaking with you this morning, and
Yes,
to
thank you for having me.
hear all that wisdom and your thoughts and insights also as to what it is day to day living and with community. Any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Your prayers. Yeah, we really need all your prayers, all 21 of us in the seminary. Yeah, we got 20 Singaporeans and 1 Bruneian right now, and hopefully more to come in the years. But it's really a difficult journey, and I think we wouldn't be able to do it without your prayers, because every time the temptations come or the insecurities come, there's a real struggle, and it's a spiritual battle that we face a lot of the time.
Indeed.
So thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your support for all of us.
You're most welcome, brother. And I just want to pick up on what you just said and just reiterate for our listeners as well, that prayer for our brothers, as they mature and they grow and discover themselves in the seminary, the value of prayer can never be, undermined, because that truly, as you said, right, brother, that there's so many things that you all are going through, and it's only through prayer that we'll be able to conquer. And so we invite you. I'm just going to take along Brother Andrew's request, and we are going to make that plea to you, dear sisters and brothers, as you tune in and you watch us and you listen to us as well. Pray for our seminarians.
Indeed.
And that's God calling already and telling us time to go.
That's right. You see?
But
yes. So be assured of our prayers.
yes, indeed.
It really is the least we can do, as you guys have also answered God's call as you are about to after this. See, I'm busy seminarians.
Yeah, that was my alarm for going to class.
Okay.
Yes.
So be assured of our prayers, and support. Okay, so we've been speaking with Brother Andrew Lin, a final year seminarian at the St. Francis Xavier Major Seminary. If you'd like to find out more about the diocesan priesthood, you can check out their website. That's seminary.catholic.sg, or you can check out their social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram. You can look for Seminarians SG. I'm Keith Newbronner, together with Andre Archak. Thank you so much for joining us on Catholic SG Radio.
Take care.